Even though Confucius is the Latinized form of the Chinese name Confuzi, did you know that his actual name was Conqui? Hey Lloyd, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, I am glad to host you for the first time. I hope you stay, and let's dive back in. Confucius is commonly known as a philosopher, but did you know that he was also a teacher and a political theorist during the Spring and Autumn period? Confucius advocated for mass education at a time when education was reserved only for a few elites. Now, I did mention that Confucius existed in the era of the Spring and Autumn period in Chinese history. So what exactly is this era? The Spring and Autumn period span from 770 to 480 BCE. In Chinese history, this was an era that saw major shifts in the political and social climate, and some of these shifts are: 1. The emergence of various philosophical schools such as Confucianism, Taoism, which I'm sure you've heard of, and legalism. The second characteristic of this era was the agricultural and technological advancements that happened at this time, and the third was that this era saw the gradual fall of the Zhou dynasty, which led to frequent conflicts and wars as other regional lords rose to power. Another interesting fact is that Confucius's work was largely ignored when he was alive, but his students were eager to pass on his teachings even after he was gone. His teachings were later incorporated as a way of life during the Han Dynasty in the 2nd century BC. Confucius's teachings were adopted as Chinese state ideology in this era and continued to influence Chinese history for millennia. Now let's talk about his work. The Analects, aka the Lanyu, aka sayings of Confucius. The Analects are a collection of sayings attributed to Confucius and his disciples. The Analects comprise 20 books, with each book having its own chapters and ideas, and they were authored by his disciples. Now, the Analects contain the thoughts, teachings, and history of Confucius. Confucianism emphasizes self-cultivation and social harmony. The 5 core virtues that are a constant are: 1. Benevolence, which is Ren; 2. Righteousness, which is Yi; 3. Decorum, which is Li; 4. Wisdom; and the last one, which is the 5th one, filial piety, which is Shao. These virtues were heavily considered in measuring a person's virtuous nature, regardless of their social status. These expectations were not limited to people and how they interacted with each other on a daily basis, but they also set the standard for the kinds of expectations that were put on leaders and how they governed. Leaders at every level were expected to have benevolent concern for the well-being of their subjects. The belief was that if the leaders led by example and were virtuous, then the subjects would also be virtuous as well, which I think is a great way to do things. On top of that, Confucianism emphasizes that leaders should regulate their subjects with Li, which we mentioned earlier is decorum, and this will bring about a sense of honor and respect among the people. Do you agree with this? Tell me in the comment section below. Confucianism emphasizes that if a government focuses on educating its citizens on morals and leading by example, then the subjects will become model upstanding citizens. Confucianism requires that government officials are held at a higher moral standard than ordinary citizens. You see, in Confucianism, filial piety is the cornerstone for morality. It is crucial in parent-child relationships, when one is relating with their ancestors, and also when one is interacting with people of a higher hierarchy within their society. Confucian believed that if people have no faith in their rulers, then there is no justification for the state. According to him, the three requisites of a government are sufficiency of food, sufficiency of military equipment, and people having faith in their ruler. But out of all the three requisites, he valued people having faith in their ruler the most. He believed it to be the most important requisite. Confucianism still affects the Chinese way of life to this day, but it also had a great influence on other Asian countries. Some of his sayings, I'll mention just a few, but you can go ahead and mention some of your favorite Confucius sayings in the comment section down below. Please do tell us. They could be ones that I don't mention or the ones that I mention. Tell me which ones are your favorite. Okay, the first one is, our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall, which I think is really encouraging, It's one of my favorites. That's why it was my first one. But okay, the second one, a superior man is modest in his speech, but exalts in his actions. The third one, by three methods we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is the noblest. Second, by imitation, which is the easiest. And third, by experience, which is the bitterest. Fourth, real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. Personally, I concur with that. Fifth, if you think in terms of a year, plant a seed. In terms of 10 years, plant trees. If in terms of 100 years, teach the people. The sixth one, without feelings of respect, what is there to distinguish man from beasts? Seventh, he who learns but does not think is lost. He who thinks but does not learn is in great danger. Personally, this quote challenged me in a good way, because sometimes you may ruminate over things and you keep thinking about them, and sometimes it will become harmful because then it just becomes negative things, especially if it's about a negative experience. But if you apply this saying where he talks about learning, or thinking and learning, then you can try and take away some lessons from experiences, however good or bad. And I think that's why I love this saying. Again, it's another one of my favorites. 8, I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. 9, when anger rises, think of the consequences. Great advice, if you ask me. 10, if I'm working with 2 other men, each of them will serve as my teacher. I will pick out the good points of one of them and imitate them, and the bad points of the other and correct them in myself. 11, the strength of a nation comes from the integrity of the home. This I think ties back to what we're talking about. Leaders leading by example so that the citizens themselves can be encouraged to become upstanding citizens. Number 12, when it is obvious that the goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps. Another one of my favorites, because it's it's encouraging. And I think for me, as long as I feel it's encouraging, it falls under the umbrella of my favorite quotes, because it's encouraging, and again, this one is also very applicable and it helps, 13, when one man meditates upon good thoughts, the better will be his world and the world at large. 14, learning without thought is labor lost. Thought without learning is perilous. 15, the expectations of life depend upon diligence. The mechanic that will perfect his work must first sharpen his tools. 16. We should feel sorrow but not sink under depression. Again, one of my favorite quotes by Confucius because it's very encouraging. 17. In a country well governed, poverty is something to be ashamed of, but in a country badly governed, wealth is something to be ashamed of. This is one of those quotes that make you take a second and think about things, The last one, to see what is right and not do it is want of courage or principle. So thank you for staying all the way to the end, and make sure you subscribe, like, and click on the bell notification icon so that you get notified the next time I upload. Have a lovely day or night wherever you are. Until next time, bye, Lloyd.